The Interdimensional Crime-Fighting Meerkats of Almost Certain Peril in Scorp-ION Guy Strikes by Sam Goodings, cover art by Dylan Porter. In a time similar to your own, inside a parallel reality which is shifted slightly to the left, in England, near the top, on the west-hand side, there is a zoo. And a little way north of that zoo, up in the hills, is a wind turbine. And under that turbine, in a secret base, lived the interdimensional crime-fighting meerkats of almost certain peril. These meerkats were not always crime-fighting meerkats of almost certain peril. No. Once they'd been just regular meerkats. Meerkats that had escaped from a zoo and taken refuge in the hills. The zoo was on the hunt for them and were determined to recapture them. This was mainly because the smallest of the meerkats kept stealing the picnickers' sandwiches, and there had been plenty of complaints. 7 in total. However, the night before these meerkat desperados were to be caught, fate intervened. It just so happened that very night that a space anomaly, a large purple swirly thing, appeared in space, a woozy big black thing, close to Earth, the big green and blue spinning thing, and caused a load of interdimensional space portals to open all over the place because of science. And so it happened that one of the portals opened up right above the wind turbine where those meerkats lived. It sucked them up to who knows where, another dimension probably, and all the humans of Earth, and some of the dogs and dolphins too, I imagine, were busy for a few weeks trying not to get sucked up by the strange portals, and also trying not to get eaten by anything weird that the portals spewed out, and also trying to use science to close the portals, although the dogs did less of this. Anyway, the long short of it is that everyone forgot about those 4 meerkats that escaped from the zoo, and after a while the portals closed and things sort of went back to normal. Only not completely back to normal, because now some people have superpowers, and sometimes monsters turn up and try to eat whole cities, and all sorts of weird stuff can happen whenever some plot development is needed. Also, space radiation is involved, again because of science. Anyway, the important thing to remember is that in this new world there are crazy baddies and monsters and all sorts of cool things. There's no sort of rules to it really, so don't try to get all clever about it, just go with it. For example, some people, animals, things are supervillains, and because of them, the galactic balance needed some heroes. And some of the heroes it chose were, well, you've guessed it, the modular mining moles of Minnesota, and also the League of Heroic Space Radishes. But also, the galactic balance chose, as heroes, those 4 meerkats. You see, when those 4 meerkats came back through the portal from wherever they got sucked up into, they came back different. Small changes like that 3 of them were now over 6 feet tall and the other was a baby who was a genius. Also, their leader is a monkey. I mean, he didn't even get sucked up by a portal. All live at the wind turbine, so how he's connected to all of this is anyone's guess. But one thing we know is this: whenever there is danger, whenever evil threatens to raise its monstrous head, there is a new force for good ready to oppose all that smells of badness, and that force is the interdimensional crime-fighting meerkats of almost certain peril. Chapter 1. It had been another long week in New York City. Rocky was patrolling the foyer of the First National Bank of America, feeling like he hadn't seen a weekend in well over a month. He straightened the tie on his uniform and checked his watch. Still 3 hours until lunch. Queues of people waited to speak to bank cashiers as the morning sun shone lazily through the high windows. All was as it should be, and then, in a moment, it wasn't. Without warning, the calm was shattered as part of the bank's wall smashed inward, sending chunks of stone crashing to the marble floor. Rocky dived behind a pillar, grabbing a customer as he did, as a piece of masonry flew by. Rocky made sure the customer was okay, then scanned the room. All around, people were in shock. Then a flash of movement caught his eye. There was something lurking through the hole in the wall. Some sort of monster? No, this was no monster. Through the smoke and dust, Rocky could see that this was a man in some sort of metal suit. A green helmet covered most of his features, but below the dark faceplate was a human jaw. The figure leapt down into the bank, the weight of his power suit cracking the marble floor. He stood there, 8 strong metal legs gleaming, mecha pincers snipping, and a powerful armour-plated tail swishing. You're... Rocky began. That's right. I am Scorp-ION Guy, the greatest hero who ever lived. Rocky drew his gun. Hero? You're a menace. And you should tuck that tail between your legs and run. The police will already be on their way. This bank has inbuilt alarms. Scorp-ION Guy laughed. His suit whirred as some unseen mechanism came to life. Panels opened in his shoulder armour. 2 large headlights rose up. Scorp lights, engage! Blinding light shone across the room. Rocky fell backwards, dazzled by the light. He steadied himself but was unable to see. Don't worry, said Scorp-ION Guy. My Scorp lights will only blind you for a few minutes, then you'll be able to see again. But that's all the time I need to get what I came here for. I'll be long gone before your puny police arrive. Rocky staggered, leaning against a wall. He couldn't risk shooting his gun now he couldn't see. I can't let you do this, he shouted. I won't let this bank get robbed, not by some oversized insect. Scorp-ION Guy shrieked in fury. What did you say? Scorpions aren't insects, they're arachnids. Now get out of my way, you factually incorrect chump. And with this, Scorp-ION Guy raised his powerful mech tail. The stinger caught in a beam of sunlight, for a moment glistened, then shot forward. Look out, he's going to poison you, a woman shouted. Rocky hurled himself to the floor, but the stinger stopped in mid-air. Scorp-ION Guy turned his head, robotic eyes scanning the crowd. Who said that? Who dares speak? The crowd cowered under his glare. Hi, that was me. A dark-haired woman stepped forward, raising a hand. How dare you say scorpions are poisonous? Scorp-ION Guy roared. But they are, aren't they? Scorpions are venomous, not poisonous, you buffoon. No need to be rude about it. I thought they were the same thing, the woman said. Well, they aren't. Poison is when you eat or drink something that makes you sick. Venom is when you are injected. Scorp-ION Guy's voice softened and he seemed to relax a little, enjoying educating the room full of terrified people. A good way to remember is that if you bite it and get sick, it's poison. If it bites you and you get sick, it's venom. Scorp-ION Guy lifted a large, steely pincer, his voice rising in volume again. Now, have you all got that, you primitive screwheads? There was general mutters of agreement and a few nods as the people fell back afraid. All except the dark-haired woman, who instead took another step forwards. What about wasps? She asked. She sounded genuinely interested. Scorp-ION Guy studied her closely from behind his armoured faceplate. Venomous. Ants? Some are venomous, yes. Frogs? Most frogs are neither venomous nor poisonous. However, there are some species of poisonous frogs. Like the poisonous dart frog? The woman asked, perching on a half-destroyed countertop and taking out a notebook and pen. That's correct. The woman began writing. So poisonous dart frogs are not dangerous unless you eat them. That's right, said Scorp-ION Guy. Say, what are you jotting down there? The woman offered a friendly smile. Just making some notes. Now, I thought some people took the poison from dart frogs and coated darts in it and used it for hunting creatures like monkeys. Yes, that is true, said Scorp-ION Guy, curling his tail beneath him as a seat. A very effective hunting method. It really is, said the woman, still scribbling furiously. So if the slime from a poisonous dart frog is coated onto a dart and pierces the skin of an animal, such as a monkey, is that classed as poison or venom? Scorp-ION Guy nodded. I see what you mean. Well, you see, the poisonous dart frog would be classified as poisonous because it lacks any way to inject the toxic substance it produces. Therefore, it's only generally dangerous when eaten. However, if the toxin enters the body through a cut or open wound or is injected by a dart, it becomes venom. The woman nodded. So there are no truly venomous frogs. There are currently only 2 species of frog known to be venomous. Bruno's cask-headed frog, Latin name, Apparis phenodon brunoi, and Greening's frog, Corythomantis greening. You really are a very clever supervillain, said the woman. I'm actually a hero, but thank you, said Scorp-ION Guy. People only talk about my amazing strength and incredible speed. They overlook how hard it is to plan all my exploits and rarely mention my staggering brain power. You see, I crave factual accuracy, like most people crave food. Scorp-ION Guy stood and began wandering the foyer. You'd be amazed at how many TV shows, movies and books get the difference between poison and venom wrong. And I can tell you that this won't be that sort of book. Mistakes like that literally make my blood boil and have no place in a book starring me, Scorp-ION Guy, the greatest arachnid-based hero of all time. The woman continued taking notes. Scorp-ION Guy clicked his pincers together. You know, you seem really into this whole poison versus venom thing. Maybe we should discuss it more, perhaps over dinner sometime. Silence hung between them for a moment, and in that moment the distant sound of police sirens carried to their ears. Scorp-ION Guy's eyes narrowed. Hang on a second. I recognise you now. You're that busybody reporter off groovy Channel 27 News, the one who covered the story about the lava crocodile who tried to eat Central Park. The woman sprang forward, returning her notebook to her pocket. Sure am. I'm Mayo Crouch, ace reporter. And you're going to be my next big scoop. I'm calling it The Day Scorp-ION Guy Went to Prison for a Bazillion Years. Electricity began crackling up and down Scorp-ION Guy's mech suit as his anger grew. You've been stalling me the whole time, huh? You catch on quick, said Mayo. The police will be here any time now. You think you're clever? I'll show you. With that, Scorp-ION Guy unclipped a metal sphere from his suit. My gas grenade will give me all the time I need to get what I came for. With that, he hurled the smoke bomb onto the floor. His faceplate extended as a mask covered his nose and mouth. A green, foul-smelling gas streamed out of the grenade. Mayo tried to hold her breath, but it was no good. The room span, and everything went black. Chapter 2. It had been another long week in Washington, D.C. At 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, better known as the White House, the President of the United States had finished several important meetings and was about to begin another. It was just a normal day. And then, it wasn't. The door to the Oval Office crashed open and the Vice President rushed inside. Madam President, we have a problem. The world is in terrible danger. The President sat up and calmly looked over the top of her glasses. Don't tell me. A huge space station known as the Death Star has entered Earth's orbit and is going to destroy us with a super powerful laser. The Vice President shook his head. No, you're thinking of Star Wars again. The President chewed a pen. Okay, give me another guess. An experimental theme park has been illegally using science to bring dinosaurs back to life, and now the dinosaurs have escaped and pose a threat to all life as we know it? I'm pretty sure that's the plot of Jurassic World. The President nodded. Yes, I think you're right. One more try? The Vice President agreed reluctantly. You're the President, I suppose? An evil wizard whose name we cannot mention. That's Harry Potter. The President smashed her fist on the desk. Well, if it's none of those, what is the problem? Madam President, what I'm going to tell you is top secret. It's to do with the First National Bank of America. What is it? The First National Bank of America is a large building in New York where we keep lots of money, but that's not important right now. What is important is that it's just been robbed by Scorp-ION Guy. Is that all? Can't we just print some more money? That's the thing, Scorp-ION Guy didn't steal any money. The President took a sip of a coffee. Oh, well, that's sorted. I mean, that really is a big oversight on his behalf, isn't it? Imagine robbing a bank and forgetting to steal any money. That must make him the worst supervillain in history, right? Madam President, he wasn't trying to steal any money. It just so happened that we were holding all the information for one of your super secret projects in that bank vault. The President dropped her mug. It hit the carpet with a dull thud. Coffee spilled everywhere. You mean? The Vice President nodded. Yes. By now, he can prove everything. The President bit her lip. So it's come to this. It has. He has access to your most secure files. The President winced. So what you're telling me is Scorp-ION Guy has now got all the passwords and login details to my Amazon account? The Vice President blinked. Madam President, this is much more serious than Amazon. It's not my Minecraft account, is it? He'd better not delete my hardcore world. No, the Vice President screamed. And it's not your Roblox, Fortnite or Nintendo eShop account either. We're talking about your other project. You know, the really secret one. Not my Pokemon trading card game account. I'll never be able to remake that psychic deck. The Vice President let out a howl of frustration. It's nothing to do with playing games. I'm talking about Project Jabberwocky. The President picked up a mug and dropped it again. Coffee didn't spill everywhere because it was empty, but it added to the sense of tension. Project Jabberwocky. What can we do? Scorp-ION Guy is saying that if we don't fulfill his demands, he's going to sell Project Jabberwocky to the highest bidder. The President fidgeted in a chair. And what are his demands? That's the problem. He hasn't made any yet. We've tried to make contact, but he's not answering our messages. We've only got 24 hours. The President turned to look out of the window. Scorp-ION Guy. Which one is that again? He's the one who dresses like a scorpion and terrorizes New York. There seem to be so many of these supervillains cropping up these days. Yes, the Vice President nodded. Since last year's space anomaly, interdimensional rifts are opening up everywhere, spewing out new technology, aliens or supervillains. We're putting it all down to space radiation. Space radiation? The Vice President lifted an eyebrow. Yeah, it's a type of radiation. From space. Makes people go crackers. The President tapped her fingers on the desk. So what shall we do? Shall we send the army after this guy? We can't locate him, said the Vice President. Somehow he's avoiding our most powerful sensors. Even if we could find him, his armour is impervious to our best weapons and his claws shred battle tanks like butter. Do you really shred butter? The President asked. I do, said the Vice President. Look, we need to fight fire with fire. The President nodded. You mean call one of these so-called superhero teams? I think that's the only option, replied the Vice President. Very well, the President exclaimed, surging to her feet. Put in a call to the modular mining moles of Minnesota. But, Madam President, the modular mining moles have gone underground fighting the Coyote Kid and the League of Canine Catastrophe. Well, how about Superforce 5? They're currently in a parallel dimension fighting the space pirates of the Omega Sector, said the Vice President. The President slumped down. Then we're defeated. Not quite. There is one more option. You don't mean? But we swore we'd never call on them again, not after last time, said the President. Yes, said the Vice President, but we have no choice. We must call at once for the interdimensional crime-fighting meerkats of almost certain peril. Chapter 3. Located in a maze of tunnels deep inside the top secret base of the interdimensional crime-fighting meerkats of almost certain peril, Chief Engineer Scruffy, he was the only engineer, was ready with his tools. He was in the middle of a delicate procedure to repair an essential piece of hardware. Have you fixed it yet? A voice asked. Scruffy stood up, removed his welding goggles and wiped sweat from his brow. This is a very challenging operation, he said. It takes time. You said that last time, said Captain Meerkat. He had been the first one to come back through the portal, and their leader had given him the least imaginative name. In fairness, the leader was a monkey called Master Monkey, so it was likely he'd just intended to call them all the newly mutated animals by their species name. But when 4 meerkats came back through the portal, he'd had to get creative. Scruffy was the technician of the crew. With a hammer and some plumber's tape, he could fix anything, usually. He squinted and slowly gave the screw another half-turn. Finished? Asked Meerkat. He was the leader. Sensible, level-headed and calm under fire. He also had a laser rifle. I think so, said Scruffy. It should hold together. I hope so. We can't afford a repeat of last time, said Meerkat. We could just use the grill, Scruffy suggested. The door opened and a new meerkat entered. She was tall and moved with the balance and poise of a highly trained ninja. That's a dancing ninja. She leapt into her seat at the table, scooping up a pile of odd screws and bolts. Absently, she began juggling with them with one hand. "Why does it always feel like Monday these days?" she asked. "Feels like forever since the weekend. I need some time off." "We're heroes, we don't get time off," said Meerkat. Squeak shrugged. "Is it ready yet?" she yawned. "Hey, Squeak, be careful with those," said Scruffy. "I might need them." "Oh, come on," said Squeak. She tossed a handful of screws into the air, then stood on her seat and performed a somersault before catching them behind her back. "You know I never mess up." Scruffy frowned and turned to Meerkat. "Okay, let's try it then." Scruffy reached out a hand, but Meerkat grabbed his wrist before he could flick the power switch. "Hold on, Scruffy," said Meerkat. "We need to do this properly." Scruffy sighed. "Seriously?" "Absolutely," said Meerkat. "We need to keep standards high. We haven't had a proper assignment for weeks. Not since we took down that mutated chocolate eclair that was going to destroy Mars." "How could we forget?" said Squeak. "I'm still cleaning chocolate sauce out of my ears." "Exactly," said Meerkat. "So let's not get sloppy. Let's treat this like a real mission." Scruffy let out a long breath. "Using our ranks and code names and stuff?" "Correct, Chief Engineer Scruffy." Scruffy sighed. Arguing was pointless. "Permission to begin testing phase, Captain." Meerkat nodded. "Chief Engineer Scruffy, begin the testing phase in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Meerkat paused for dramatic effect. Scruffy rolled his eyes. "Engage," commanded Meerkat. Security Officer Squeak looked on nervously while Chief Engineer Scruffy powered up the machine. He took 2 pieces of bread and popped them inside. Clicking them down, he turned the dial to 3. "3?" barked Meerkat. "Are you insane? Can it handle going straight to 3? "I don't know, Captain," said Scruffy, "but there's only one way to find out." The 3 Meerkats watched with bated breath. Then suddenly, mounted on the wall on the other side of the room, the communications screen flashed into life. The screen was filled with the imposing face of the President of the United States. The President looked at them grimly. "The interdimensional crime-fighting meerkats of almost certain peril? We have an emergency." Then she blinked a couple of times and looked a little startled. "Actually, we have 2 emergencies." "What's the first?" asked Meerkat. The President nodded. "A crazy supervillain known as Scorp-ION Guy has stolen a top-secret file which could change the world as we know it." "Scorp-ION Guy, eh?" said Meerkat, shaking his fist in the air. "We've heard of that fiend. Nothing we can't handle. What's the second emergency, Madam President?" "Well, it appears that your toaster is on fire, and so is your friend's tail." "Ah, yes, naturally," said Meerkat. "Hang on, what?" The 3 Meerkats span and let out a shriek. 2 of them because half the kitchen was now on fire, the other because half his tail was. Squeak grabbed a fire extinguisher and drenched everything and everyone in foam until the fire was under control. When that was done, Meerkat turned back to the President. He wiped the foam off his eyes so he could see and offered a nervous smile, which the President couldn't see because his mouth was still covered in foam. "Sorry, Madam President, it's just that we were practicing our bomb disposal techniques." "And you decided not to use a bomb laboratory but your kitchen?" asked the President. "Yes, you never know," said Meerkat. "And instead of a bomb you used a toaster?" Meerkat nodded. "Yes, the bomb was in the toaster." The President nodded. "And you decided to do this at breakfast time?" Meerkat nodded. "With 3 plates on the table. A tub of butter, some jam and 3 cups of tea?" the President asked. Considering all that was now covered in a thick sheet of foam, Meerkat realised that the President of the United States must have excellent visual recall. Yeah, that's how we like to practice our bomb disposal," said Meerkat. The President shrugged. "All righty then," she said. "When will you be ready for the mission briefing?" "Give us 5 minutes to have a quick wipe round and get Science Officer Goo Goo and Commander Monkey and we'll be ready in the briefing room," said Meerkat. Chapter 4. Meerkat rushed round the base and summoned Master Monkey, who was taking his morning swing around his bedroom. He was a monkey, and woke little Gugu. Gugu was the meerkat most affected by being sucked through an interdimensional portal. While the others had grown to over 6 foot in size and learned amazing skills like acrobatics, laser rifle, maintenance, and how to make the perfect spaghetti bolognese, Gugu, so named as it was the only thing she could say, had instead become the size of a human baby. A baby with no skills for fighting crime or handling situations of almost certain peril at all, unless you counted as a skill the fact that she had become a scientific genius capable of inventing technology beyond the scope of human or meerkat understanding, and everyone did count that. The downside was that because Gugu was still a baby, her inventions lacked what you might call focus. For example, a few weeks ago she had invented a time machine using nothing but a few pieces of string, some toy blocks and half a teddy bear. She'd managed to power it using some hydrogen she extracted from tap water. The time machine was fully functional but only had one setting. When pressed, it took Gugu back in time to the start of that day's screen time so she could watch all her TV programs again. Normally, the other meerkats were very strict and only allowed her 2 hours of screen time per day. No more and no less. Unless they were really tired or had a cold, in which case it was a free-for-all. Anyway, they only discovered the time machine after Captain Meerkat evolved a time travel sense, the ability to know when his body had been temporarily displaced, and this happened after he realised he'd sat through 356,984 episodes of Binky Bunny on the same day. Anyhow, most of that isn't important to remember. Just remember that although Gugu just says Gugu a lot and falls asleep and poops herself, she is in fact really smart. So, Meerkat gathered up the sleeping Gugu, shoved her dummy in for good measure, and rushed back to the meeting room. As he entered, Master Monkey had already taken his position at the head of the table, his deep maroon dressing gown as splendid as ever. He gestured for Meerkat to sit, took baby Gugu in his arms and gave her a bottle. The little one opened her eyes, smiled, tugged on the monkey's stringy beard, divined the basis for a future clean energy-powered communication system that encoded data inside sunlight, did a big trump, and slurped at her bottle contentedly. "Ready?" asked Squeak, sitting next to Scruffy. The whole of the interdimensional crime-fighting meerkats of almost certain peril were assembled. Each nodded that they were ready, and Squeak opened up a communication channel to the White House. At once, the President's face appeared on the video screen. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting, the interdimensional crime-fighting meerkats of almost certain peril. The world needs your help once more." "Tell us the situation," said Meerkat. The President nodded. "Scorp-ION Guy has stolen valuable plans, codenamed Project Jabberwocky. In the wrong hands, the information in those plans could jeopardize the whole world." "What's in these plans that's so dangerous?" Scruffy asked. The President opened her mouth to answer, but at that moment Gugu, suddenly wide-eyed and alert, turned and pointed at the screen. "Gugu!" shouted Gugu, pointing at the screen. "Gugu!" Then she looked at Master Monkey. "Gugu?" "No, this is important, little one," said Master Monkey. "Gugu?" "No, we can't switch it off." "Gugu! Gugu!" "No, we can't put on Binky Bunny. This is important. That's the President. Now be quiet," said Master Monkey. "Gugu!" shouted Gugu. Master Monkey shook his head. "What a thing to say, young lady. Her nose isn't that big. How rude. Apologise." "Gugu! Apologise properly. Gugu!" "That's better," said Master Monkey. "What has gotten into you lately?" Meerkat looked at Master Monkey and Gugu. "Have you two quite finished?" "Gugu!" said Gugu, and knocked her milk on the floor in a sulk. "Is that baby part of the team?" asked the President. "She sure is," said Squeak. "She's a genius." "Gugu!" beamed Gugu, enjoying the praise. Last week she invented this, said Squeak, rooting in a pocket and producing a fork. The president looked confused. She invented a fork? She sure did, said Squeak. But not just any old fork. It's an invisible space fork. In simple terms, it's a fork you can use in space. That's invisible. Goo-goo, beamed Goo-goo. But can't you use any fork in space? The president asked. And also, it's not invisible. I can see it. Squeak nodded. Oh, well that's an easy one. You see, the fork is a special sort of invisible. A special sort of invisible? The president looked very confused. That's right, said Squeak. It's only invisible when no one looks at it. And no, you can't use any old fork in space. They float off if you let go of them, said Squeak. In space you need a fork like this. This fork has tiny space thrusters and a complex tracking computer built into it, so that it forks food into your mouth using anti-gravity technology. Watch! Squeak let go of the fork, which immediately fell on the floor and bounced under the table. She looked up sheepishly. I forgot. It only works when you're in space. Excuse me, said Squeak, ducking under the table. Blast, it's gone invisible. Now I'll never find it. Goo-goo, said Goo-goo, a proud smile on her cute little face. The president looked at the meerkats and opened her mouth to say something. Thought better of it. Closed her mouth. Opened it again. And then the fire alarm went off. It's that blooming toaster again, said Scruffy, leaping to his feet and rushing into the kitchen. How's it still smoking? It took a few minutes for the fire alarm to be silenced. The president watched the interdimensional crime-fighting meerkats of almost certain peril from the video screen. The monkey did nothing, just sat fussing the baby, who was tugging on the monkey's beard. Then it threw up. The one called Squeak was still under the table looking for an invisible space fork. The mechanic was rushing around in the background trying to fix a toaster, and the leader stood there looking embarrassed. The president turned to the vice president. Are you sure we should give the job to this lot? The vice president looked a little unsure and turned to the vice president and asked him the same question. The vice president didn't want the burden of such a big decision, so he turned to the vice president and asked her. She asked for 5 minutes to think about it, went into another room and rang a retired 4-star general who felt it was too big a decision for him alone, so he asked his wife. She in turn popped next door and asked her neighbour, who, not really knowing the answer, asked her son, who was on the Xbox. Her son didn't really understand nor care what his mum was going on about. He was just about to take a penalty on FIFA, so he decided that if he scored, they should let the interdimensional crime-fighting meerkats of almost certain peril have the job. He scored and gave his mum the thumbs up. So she went into the lounge and told the retired 4-star general's wife. She thanked her neighbour and told her husband. He nodded and confirmed over the phone that it was a good idea to the vice president, who thanked him for his time. She returned to the Oval Office and whispered the decision into the ear of the vice president. He stepped forward and nodded to the vice president, who then nodded firmly to the president. Well, if you're sure, the president said, and turned back to the screen just as the fire alarm stopped. The mechanic meerkat came and sat down. One of his ears was on fire, but she thought it best not to say anything. So, as I was saying, we are having a problem with Scorp-ION Guy. We're ready to help, shouted Meerkat, pumping his fist in the air. You're to come to New York at once and meet with ace reporter Mayo Crouch. She saw the whole thing, said the president. How soon can you get here? We'll be there in 2 shakes of a meerkat's tail, said Meerkat. And how long is that? Asked the president. Meerkat looked at Scruffy, who was patting at his smouldering ear. About 24 hours, said Scruffy. Then we'll be on the case in 24 hours, said Meerkat. Hurry, Meerkats, time is of the essence, said the president, who I'll now call the Prez as it sounds cooler. Then she signed off. Meerkat turned to Scruffy. Can't we get to New York any faster? Not really. We'll have to use the Meerkatamaran, and it's a big ocean, said Scruffy. Don't we have some cool jet or something that could blast us there faster? Asked Meerkat. Scruffy shrugged. I could build a jet, I suppose, but I can't think of a good name for it. Squeak sighed. Not everything you build has to be a pun on the word meerkat. Scruffy looked hurt. But that's my thing. I always name everything I create based on the word meerkat. Anyway, I didn't hear you complaining last month when we got sucked back in time and we used the mere catapult to fire ourselves over that lava moat and storm the castle of the League of Uninspired Evil. All the time we got shrunk down to the size of insects and got captured by the leafcutter ants of Rizar. We used the mere caterpillar to eat our way out of their leafy prison. All right, I was just saying. No need to get defensive, said Squeak. Your inventions are good. I just think sometimes maybe you could make us something, really useful, that didn't have to be meerkat themed. If you don't like my inventions, just say, said Scruffy. Everyone likes your inventions, said Master Monkey. They are fantastic. He looked down and tickled baby Goo-Goo's tummy. Anyway, this little one was working on a jet plane only last week, weren't you, little one? Goo-Goo, purred Goo-Goo. Really? Said Squeak. That's remarkable. Yeah, said Master Monkey. This little cutesy-wootsy little furball is a very remarkable young lady, aren't you? Goo-Goo! It is a remarkable jet, said Meerkat, considering one of the wings is made out of marbles and it can only fly on Tuesdays. Sadly, today is a Thursday. Maybe when she's older she'll build more useful things, Squeak said. Like a jet that flies on Thursdays too, Scruffy suggested. I was thinking about one that would be available all week, said Squeak. Good idea, said Meerkat, but for now, let's prepare the mere catamaran for launch. Chapter 5. Meerkat, Squeak and Scruffy raced around preparing for the mission. Meerkat checked his laser rifle and made sure it was fully charged before helping the others load supplies onto the mere catamaran. He was on his way to get another box of cheese and onion mega munch crisps, Scruffy's favourite, when he passed the training hall. Master Monkey was inside with Goo-Goo, speaking sternly to the young meerkat. You're not trying again, are you? Asked Meerkat, entering the training room. One must always try, said Master Monkey. It's no good, said Meerkat. She's too young to understand. Goo-Goo, said Goo-Goo. Don't encourage her, said Master Monkey. Since you all came back through that interdimensional portal, I have worked tirelessly to raise you all to become crime-fighting meerkats, taught you the secret arts of monkey baritsu, and shaped you to each into heroes capable of overcoming situations of almost certain peril. Like the time you got a flat tyre on the way back from the chip shop? Asked Meerkat. I was thinking more about the time you defeated Zug, the alien warlord, and his army of space pugs. But yes, when you fixed my tyre it was pretty useful. The chips were getting cold, and breakdown cover is so expensive these days, but we must keep improving. The thing about this world is that it keeps getting more and more dangerous. Now scarcely a week goes by without some supervillain wrecking a city or coming up with some other fiendish plan. Like when Dr. Lunatic set the suction on everyone's toilet so high that if someone flushed the toilet in France it created a sinkhole in Australia? Yes, said Master Monkey with a shudder. And now this Scorp-ION Guy is attacked and once again the world faces danger. I see each of you as my children. I would never forgive myself if any of you got hurt on a mission. I did get hurt on the last mission, said Meerkat. I stubbed my toe really badly. Exactly. And that is why I must continue with each part of your training, and that means pursuing Goo-Goo to use the Babynator. The Babynator was perhaps Goo-Goo's most impressive invention. It was a huge power suit that she could engage at will. It was gigantic and raised her height to over 16 foot. It was also riddled in weapons, the most impressive weapon being the Death Laser 2.0. A death laser twice as powerful as any other death laser that had ever been created, which was impressive considering a standard death laser had enough power to kill anyone with a single hit, so perhaps making one twice as strong was a bit over the top, but that was Goo-Goo for you. The Babynator power suit made the wearer impervious to all damage and was strong enough to lift nearly anything. It was the meerkat's greatest weapon. However, it had 3 drawbacks. The first was that it was customised to Goo-Goo, meaning only she could summon and wear it. The second was that even though the suit was covered in weapons, Goo-Goo only ever used one function, and that was the milk cannon, which fired a small spray of her favourite milk for her to drink. Or, if she was feeling extra naughty, she sprayed the milk in someone else's face, usually Master Monkey. But the third and biggest drawback of the suit was that Gugu only ever summoned it when she didn't get to watch her 12 o'clock TV programmes. These three factors had so far meant that the meerkats couldn't use their most powerful weapon when they needed it, and indeed had to face it any time baby Gugu didn't get to watch Binky Bunny during lunch. Obviously, Gugu would never hurt any of her family, but dealing with a disgruntled 1-year-old is never easy, and it gets harder when she's inside a 16-foot-high indestructible killing machine and it's blasting you with highly accurate streams of lukewarm milk. "Right," said Master Monkey. "Gugu, it's time to learn to use the Babynator." "Gugu," said Gugu. "Deploy the Babynator," Master Monkey commanded. "Gugu," said Gugu, and began crawling towards the door. Master Monkey leapt to the ceiling and swung quickly, dropping down in front of Gugu and closing the door. "Don't ignore me, young light lady. Activate the Babynator." "Gugu," said Gugu, and decided to try to crawl through his legs. Master Monkey used his elite Bartitsu skills and span her around. "If you don't start to behave, then you'll miss your TV programmes." "Gugu," squeaked Gugu defiantly. Meerkat winced. "Gugu," squeaked Gugu again. "Such rude language," stormed Master Monkey. "No Binky Bunny for a week." "Gugu!" Meerkats took a step backwards as shimmering, crackling light began to surround Gugu. A moment later, the Babynator power suit was fused to her body. "Gugu!" boomed the now 16-foot-tall armour-clad Gugu. Master Monkey didn't move a muscle. "Now, young lady, I want you to use that armour for—" But before he could say anything, Gugu aimed one mecha arm at him and unleashed a stream of milk that blasted him right in the face. She then engaged the suit's thrusters and blasted through the base wall. Meerkat watched her go, then turned to the rather soggy and bedraggled Master Monkey. "I told you, Master, she's too young." Said Master Monkey. "She must learn. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps not today." Chapter 6. "We're closing in on New York Harbour, Captain," Chief Engineer Scruffy reported almost 24 hours later. "Excellent," said Meerkat. "Did you finish the cloaking field I asked for? The one that will make the ship completely invisible?" "Yes, Captain," said Scruffy. "Deploying the Meerkataflage cloaking system now." Squeak turned to Scruffy. "The Meerkataflage?" Scruffy shrugged. "I thought it was close enough." "I'm not complaining," said Meerkat as the vessel shimmered and then became totally invisible. "This way we can enter the harbour completely undetected." "I wouldn't be so sure," said Squeak. "Look." Meerkat watched as the people on the docks turned and began to point and wave. Meerkat frowned. "Chief Engineer Scruffy, can you explain to me why all those people are waving at us, considering this ship is now supposed to be completely invisible?" "But Captain," said Scruffy, "the ship is completely invisible, just like you asked for." "Then why are they waving?" asked Meerkat. "Well, I suppose that's because even though the ship is invisible, we're not," said Scruffy. Squeak shook her head. "So the Meerkataflage makes this whole ship invisible but not us. What's the use in that?" "There's no need to be like that about it," said Scruffy. "You try designing and engineering the next cloaking device if you want." "So what you're telling me is, to those people it looks like we're floating over the water towards them?" asked Meerkat. "I suppose so," said Scruffy. "Gugu!" said Gugu, waving at some highly excited children on the docks, who it seemed had never before seen 4 interdimensional crime-fighting meerkats float towards them on an invisible catamaran. "Well, there goes the element of surprise," said Meerkat as they docked into the port. He shouldered his laser rifle. "Let's go." The interdimensional crime-fighting meerkats of almost certain peril put their disguises on, which involved putting on a little coloured mask over their eyes. This really shouldn't have achieved much, as they were still the only interdimensionally mutated meerkats hanging around, so naturally they stood out quite a bit. I mean, if you were at Tesco, you'd notice a 6-foot-tall meerkat armed with a laser gun, right? especially if it was battling with an undead mutated crayfish. And it's not as if, after the battle, a 6-foot meerkat can take off its mask and just wander about and not be recognised. So all in all, wearing a disguise is a stupid idea, but they still do it. For your information, Meerkat's mask is red, Squeak's is silver, Scruffy's is green, and Goo Goo's has pictures of dinosaurs on it. Anyway, in their pointless disguises, the interdimensional crime-fighting meerkats of almost certain peril met ace reporter Mayo Crouch on the roof of groovy Channel 27 news studios. Mayo was stood looking out over the city as the meerkats opened the skylight and climbed onto the roof. 2 scoops in 1 week for me, smiled Mayo, taking out a camera. This is going to be a great story. No pictures, please, said Meerkat. We need to keep our secret identities intact. Mayo frowned. But you're 6-foot-tall, crime-fighting meerkats. It's not like you can blend in and just pop to the shops without being recognised. Actually, we can, said Scruffy. We've all been well trained as masters of disguise. We can blend in anywhere at the drop of a hat, because we wear these. Scruffy pointed at the tiny bit of green fabric covering his eyes. You'd never recognise without them. Mayo looked dubious. One of us is actually a world-famous actor, said Squeak. That's how good our disguises are. Wow, said Mayo, although she didn't look entirely convinced. That is impressive. Goo Goo, said Goo Goo. So please, no pictures, said Meerkat, staring out over the cityscape below. Tell us everything you know about Scorp-ION Guy. Mayo nodded, told them what had happened at the bank and showed them her notes. If you come inside, I've managed to get hold of the security footage from the bank. I was going to use it in my report, but the press said it would have to wait until after Scorp-ION Guy was captured. The meerkats followed Mayo to the editing suite and watched the video of the bank heist with interest. Apart from Goo Goo, who had a little nap and sat snoring in Scruffy's arms. OK, said Meerkat when they'd gone over the footage 5 or 6 times. It was 5. What do we know about this Scorp-ION Guy? Well, he's a stickler for facts, especially about invertebrates, said Squeak. Yes, said Meerkat. I think we could use that against him. He's got some very high-powered tech, said Scruffy. His mecha suit has got nearly as many weapons as Goo Goo's Babynator. Only he actually uses the weapons on his, Meerkat pointed out. Goo Goo, murmured Goo Goo in her sleep, perhaps hearing her name. But it wasn't a genuine contribution, as she was dreaming about Binky, Bunny and Milk. And we know that he was affected by one of the interdimensional rifts that caused your mutations too, said Mayo. Only his made him much smarter, or so he claims. And finally we know that his crimes mainly target the Upper East Side area of New York, said Meerkat. Is that enough, Scruffy? Enough for what? asked Mayo. Enough for the Meer catalogue, said Scruffy, producing a computer from his backpack. I just enter the information we've got on Scorp-ION Guy and run a search in the supervillain catalogue. He began typing. OK, we're looking for an animal expert with access to good technology, Scruffy said as he typed. Someone who resides close to the New York Upper East Side area and was potentially affected by an interdimensional rift. Sounds about right, said Meerkat. Pressing search now, said Scruffy. Anything? asked Squeak after a moment. Got some of those cute cat videos, said Scruffy. You know, the ones where cats do crazy things like get scared by hosepipes or pushing things off tables. Squeak sighed. Anything to do with the mission? The Meer catalogue has come back with 2 possible suspects, said Scruffy. Go on, said Meerkat. The first is listed as Miggins, Mary May. She's a 77-year-old granny and retired schoolteacher who has won several awards for baking delicious cupcakes. She lives in the Upper East Side and is now running a cat cafe. She's a grade 6 on the piano, Scruffy reported. And the other one? Mayo asked. The second result is as follows. Scorp-ION. He's 33. He grew up on his parents' dairy farm in Albuquerque. He graduated top of his class at Yale University with dual honours in insectology and robotics. He then went to work in the research and design department of Digidyne, Advanced Warfare Systems. He was the lead engineer and was working on an experimental suit of power armour known as the Mighty Pincer. Apparently, he lost his job a few years ago when his office and all his work were destroyed by an interdimension rift. Meerkat grinned. Bingo! I think we've found our Scorp-ION Guy. Yeah, said Scruffy. I don't care how well that old granny can play the piano. She isn't going to stand a chance against us. Everyone looked at Scruffy for a long moment. What? He asked. Not her, Squeak said. The other guy. Scruffy looked at the information again. Yeah, it's obvious now I look at it again. Meerkat nodded. Squeak, wake up Goo Goo. It's time to captures a bad guy. I love it when he says that, says Scruffy. But as he spoke, his wrist alarm began buzzing. What's that? Asked Mayo. It's my mere catastrophe alarm, said Scruffy. Scorp-ION Guy has struck again. He's attacking the Statue of Liberty. Then we'd better stop him, said Mayo. We? Squeak asked. Sure thing, grinned Mayo. It's not like I'm letting this story get away from me. Chapter 7. New York City was gridlocked. The roads blocked with beeping rush hour traffic. So the Meerkats and Mayo took the groovy Channel 27 news studio helicopter and flew it straight towards Liberty Island. The city is always so busy these days, said Mayo. It's like it's always workday rush hour traffic. Meerkat looked down at the bumper-to-bumper traffic. He had a strange feeling, but it would have to wait until after the battle. Mayo watched as the interdimensional crime-fighting Meerkats of almost certain peril prepared. They were no longer carefree but focused on the task ahead. Scruffy and Squeak both prepared their weapons, and even Goo Goo looked alert and awake, although she did have a small sleep as they passed the Brooklyn Bridge. Look, said Mayo, passing Meerkat her binoculars. Meerkat looked through them towards the iconic Statue of Liberty. At first everything seemed normal. Then he caught a glimpse of a mecha suit as Scorp-ION Guy clambered onto the statue's head. His wrist communicator beeped, the President's face flickering on the display. Madam President, said Meerkat, activating it. We've had a report that Scorp-ION Guy is trying to take over the Statue of Liberty, the Pres said. One step ahead of you, ma'am, said Meerkat. Our mere catastrophe alarm picked up his plan 20 minutes ago. We have visual lock on the target. We're about to take him down. Excellent, says the Pres. Bring that villain to justice. Will do, said Meerkat, silencing his communicator. Meerkats, it's go time. Mayo watched as the Meerkats began their final preparations. Meerkat checked the charge in his laser rifle and rechecked his combat armour. Scruffy ran a double check of his tool belt and communications array. Meanwhile, Squeak put herself through a series of stretches and contortions, making sure her body was limbered up for the battle ahead. Goo Goo was snoring and dribbling, but that was nothing new. Scruffy began strapping Goo Goo into a harness that went around his waist. Are you really taking the baby with you? Mayo asked as the helicopter began its final approach. Of course, said Scruffy. We never go on a mission without Goo Goo. But isn't she going to get hurt? She can't really get hurt because if she ever comes close to it, the baby-nator automatically... Meerkat lifted a hand. That's classified information, Scruffy. Meerkats, form up on me. On those words, the interdimensional crime-fighting Meerkats of almost certain peril moved to the door of the helicopter, and Meerkat pulled it open. The roar of the helicopter's blades and the surging air filled the cabin. Then the Meerkats leapt out, diving towards Liberty Island. Mayo watched them spear through the sky, and then opened their parachutes, circling down towards their battle with Scorp-ION Guy. The Meerkats landed in the centre of the island. High above them they could see Scorp-ION Guy scuttling towards the Statue of Liberty's head. What's he doing up there? asked Squeak. Looks like he's assembling some sort of machine, said Meerkat. What do you make of it, Scruffy? Could be anything. A seismic cannon, a death laser, a pizza thrower, it's hard to tell. We need to get up there and stop him, said Meerkat. I'll lay down some suppressing fire. Squeak, do your thing. On it, said Squeak. Meerkat aimed down the sights of his laser rifle and fired. The blast caught Scorp-ION Eye on the shoulder, spinning him. A moment later, Scorp-ION Guy returned fire. green lasers lancing from wrist-mounted shooters and forcing Scruffy and Meerkat to take cover. Gugu nearly woke up. Meerkat fired again. The distraction was working. Scorp-ION Guy hadn't spotted Squeak, who was rapidly scaling the other side of the statue and gaining on him. Meerkat and Scruffy kept drawing Scorp-ION Guy's fire while Squeak climbed ever closer. Scorp-ION Guy was still fiddling with whatever machine he was assembling, blindly returning fire from the laser cannon mounted to his tail. He was highly accurate, and a laser blast struck the wall behind the Meerkats, narrowly missing Scruffy. "Close one," Meerkat grunted, firing again towards their enemy. Scruffy looked confused. "Sir, there's something strange about Scorp-ION Guy's firing sequence." "Huh?" said Meerkat, diving into a roll to avoid another barrage of laser fire, then returning a shot of his own that sent sparks flying from Scorp-ION Guy's suit, knocking him to his knees. Scorp-ION Guy quickly recovered and found some cover. "It's his laser blasts," said Scruffy. "I've just analysed them, and they're only firing at strength 4. Readings suggest his suit is capable of an energy output for his laser weapons of over 12. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that either he's diverting huge amounts of power into that machine he's building," "which isn't good," said Meerkat, laying down more fire, trying to keep Scorp-ION Guy in hiding. "Or, as laser fire needs to be at least level 6 to kill," said Scruffy. "He's only aiming to stun us," Meerkat finished. Squeak finished her final leap and landed stealthily on Lady Liberty's head. She could see Scorp-ION Guy behind the statue's crown, keeping out of the way of Meerkat's sharp shooting. Sparks were crackling from Scorp-ION Guy's shoulder, but he was still working frantically on his machine. She was only a few steps behind now. She could leap and attack without even knowing she was there. He was an 8-foot-tall mecha-suited monstrosity in the latest power armour, complete with high-frequency vibrational blades, death lasers, a venomous stinger, power bombs, scorp lights, and superhuman strength. Squeak had nothing but her skill, claws, and the element of surprise. She decided it wasn't really a fair fight. The poor guy didn't stand a chance. "Hey, bozo," said Squeak. "I want you to know that I could have beaten you already, but thought I'd play nice and let you know I was here." Scorp-ION Guy span round, his tail flailing out in frenzy. Squeak could have dodged it. She could have rolled under it. She could have leapt over it. But all of that was a bit boring for Squeak. Instead, she leapt straight up, span 3 times, gave Scorp-ION Guy a salute, and then landed on his moving tail. Her balance, as always, was perfect. Then Squeak dashed along it. Scorp-ION Guy tried to snip her with his pincers. He missed. He tried to swish his tail to shake her loose. He failed. He fired his lasers. She dodged. She jumped. She landed on his head and somersaulted backwards, the force staggering him. She landed on his back and with one claw cut through the power wires that fed energy from his power pack to his suit. Scorp-ION Guy flailed as his suit's energy spiked. He thrashed around for a few more seconds trying to hit her. He might as well have been trying to punch a shadow. With a final whir, his suit's power faded and it shut down, ejecting Scorp-ION Guy at Squeak's feet. "Ian Scorp, I presume?" Squeak asked. "You don't understand," Ian Scorp cried. "You mustn't stop my work. We're running out of time." "Your work's done and so is your reign of terror," said Squeak. "You built a great suit, but you made one mistake, tangling with me." "You foolish, stupid, bipedal mongoose. My plan must go ahead. My machine must live. It must. You don't know what you're doing." "I sure do," said Squeak. "I'm winning." "Any final words before I take you in?" asked Squeak. Ian Scorp looked at her and his face twisted into a thin smile. "Only 2. Engage teleporter." Ian Scorp glowed for a second and then vanished in a flash of blue light. "Technically, that was 4 words," said Squeak. Chapter 8. The interdimensional crime-fighting meerkats of Almost Certain Peril were back at Groovy Channel 27 News headquarters. "Well, that was intense," said Mayo. "I suppose we stopped Scorp-ION Guy and the Prez has seized his crazy machine, but where does that leave us?" "Confused," said Meerkat. "Something about this whole thing stinks. Stinks worse than one of Goo-Goo's extra stinky trumps. And they do stink, Squeak confirmed, really bad. Goo-Goo, said Goo-Goo. If only we could have found out what his machine did, said Scruffy. But the Prez sent that team in so quickly they'd whipped it off to Area 102 faster than I could say. Excuse me, Madam President, please could I have a look at Scorp-ION Guy's machine so I can find out what it does? Yes, it was quick, said Mayo. Do you think the Prez didn't want us to see the machine? Meerkat nodded. There's a lot of little things about this case that are starting to bug me. Scorp-ION Guy's accuracy, for one. Our search on him suggests he very rarely misses, but against us, he hit nothing but air. Yeah, said Scruffy. It was like he was trying to miss. And the power level of his lasers was well below the power level needed to really hurt us. And then it was weird that the Prez didn't let us look at his machine, finished Squeak, as she slumped down into a chair and stretched. I'm beat. Could fall asleep right here. Me too, said Mayo. Feel like I haven't had a day off in about a month. I could kill for an extra large pizza with all the special toppings. Pineapple, anchovies, hot dogs, watermelon, ice cream. But we can't quit just because we're tired. Meerkat's eyes narrowed and he surged to his feet. What did you say? Hey, I like weird pizzas. No need to get tetchy. Meerkat shook his head. Not the thing about the pizza, the other thing. I said we can't quit because we're tired, said Mayo. No, before that. I said I felt like I hadn't had a day off in about a month. Meerkat pursed his lips and looked deep in thought. What is it, boss? asked Squeak. Just a feeling. One I've had before, but I'm not sure. I need to think about it. For now, let's get some more information on this Ian Scorp. That's a good idea, said Mayo. There must be something on him somewhere. Scruffy, got anything else on the Mir catalogue? Squeak asked. Scruffy looked up from his wrist-mounted computer and shook his head. Nothing new. In fact, most official records have been deleted. All we know for sure is that he worked on his parents' dairy farm until he was 17. Apparently, there was an accident and he went to hospital. After he recovered, he moved away. No details of the accident. Partial snippets of his educational record exist. Yale University, robotics and insectology. But mainly, his history is a blank. Then he pops up working at Digidyne. Doing well too, until they get closed down. Any info on what they got closed down for? Mayo asked, chewing the top of a pencil. Nothing official. Scruffy's hands danced over the Mir catalogue's controls. But I'm finding some encrypted information. It seems his team was working on 2 projects at the time they were closed down. Project Pincer and Project Vorpal. Project Vorpal? Meerkat mused. Interesting. What's interesting about it? asked Squeak. Wasn't the name of the project Scorp-ION Guy stole called Project Jabberwocky? Scruffy interjected. So? asked Squeak. Alice in Wonderland. Mayo snapped her fingers. The Jabberwocky and the Vorpal sword are enemies. Think there's a link? I'm starting to, said Meerkat. Suddenly, Meerkat's communicator began to buzz. He tapped it, casting the image to the studio's TV screen. The president's face looked down on them. We've located an energy field which our texts say must be Scorp-ION Guy, coming from a cavern deep beneath Central Park. Is your team ready? We were born ready, said Scruffy. Very good, said the Prez. But are you ready now? I'm not sure, I'll check. Scruffy looked at Meerkat. Are we ready? Meerkat nodded. We're ready. Goo-Goo, said baby Goo-Goo. Chapter 9. The only way to get to the caverns below Central Park was, predictably for this sort of thing, through the sewers. Why is there always a sewer level? Scruffy asked, holding his nose. They had been following the signal on their wrist computers, slowly getting closer to Scorp-ION Guy's lair for nearly half an hour. The dank, poop-smelling tunnels were beginning to get on everyone's nerves, apart from Goo-Goo, who was asleep. Again. Say, said Mayo, why don't you tell me how you all ended up getting mutated into humanoid intelligent meerkats? Dunno, really, grunted Squeak. You don't know? Mayo asked. Well, we can't really remember anything that happened to us before we got spat out of that portal, said Meerkat, holding open a rusty sluice gate to let the others pass. Yeah, It's kind of like trying to remember a dream, said Scruffy. Goo-goo, said Baby Goo-goo, who had woken up. Oh, Mayo said. You sound disappointed, said Meerkat. Yeah, laughed Scruffy. What did you want to hear? Did you think someone had flushed us down a toilet or something, and then we got exposed to some toxic ooze? Yeah, and the ooze mutated us, and we ended up living in the sewers like a bunch of chumps, Squeak snorted. Well, Mayo began. That would be ridiculous, said Scruffy. Ridiculous. Goo-goo, giggled Baby Goo-goo. I suppose you think we learnt our skills by being trained by a giant guinea pig in a smoking jacket, Squeak scoffed. And spend our days eating garlic bread and roller skating. That would be stupid, laughed Scruffy. And I suppose the guinea pig would give us stupid names from some book or something that got washed down into the sewers. Yeah, he'd name us after the greatest artists of the 20th century or something silly like that, said Squeak. Yeah, like Tinky, Winky, Dipsy, Lala and Poe, said Scruffy. I'd like to see someone writing a successful, internationally famous, heroic, ninja-themed franchise based on a load of rubbish. It's almost offensive, really, said Squeak. Our backstory and amnesia is totally based on real science and space anomalies. I just thought there might be a little more to it, said Mayo. These space anomalies seem a bit random, like sometimes they mutate people, other times they teleport things. It's like they can't do anything. I just thought maybe this would be a good time in the story for you to talk a bit about your past. It might make the readers care about you more and allow you to set up some interesting plot developments for the future. Squeak tutted. The very idea that you'd think we'd reveal some heartfelt rubbish just to fill some time in a forgettable sewer-based section of the story. For what? Just to make you empathise and care about us more? Or to build some logic into this world? The idea you think we'd even try that just shows how badly you've failed to grasp the standards we're trying to set here. It's not that sort of book. Okay, I was only asking, said Mayo. But what you've just said, you know, about the creatures that got flushed into the sewers, it does bear a strange resemblance to... Quiet, Meerkat ordered. I think we've found Scorp-ION Guy's base. Chapter 10. The sewers opened out into a broad cavern, and the Meerkats, plus Mayo, stopped for a moment to take in what they were seeing. To the left was a small dark cave. To the right, hidden beyond the collapsed remains of an old metro tunnel, was a massive scorpion-shaped base with mega turrets and a moat of liquid death. Guess we know where he's holding up then, said Squeak. Yeah, let's go get him, said Scruffy, heading off towards the small cave. He travelled some 20 metres, 65.6168 foot, or 0.0994192 furlongs before he slowed and walked back to the rest of the group. He's not in the cave, is he? No, said Meerkat. So all the Meerkats plus Mayo went to the Scorp-ION base. 3 deadly imposing obstacles of death stood in their way. 4, if you counted the large electrified steel doors they would need to get past in order to get inside the base, and seeing as everyone did count those, there were 4 deadly imposing obstacles in their way. First was the liquid death bubbling in the moat. Second was the laser grid. Third were the mega turrets. Fourth were the huge electrified doors. And fifth, the diamond-tipped scorpion pincers that attacked anyone who got near to the doors. So there were actually 5 deadly imposing obstacles of death. Or 4, if you counted the doors and the scorpion's arms as one thing, which I don't, so there are 5. So, how do we get past this one? Asked Scruffy, looking into the bubbling moat of liquid death. Goo-goo, said Baby Goo-goo, pointing at the goo in the moat. I'm quite partial to a bubble bath at the end of a long day, said Squeak, throwing a rock into the moat and watching it disintegrate. But I think I'll pass on this one. Well, it is green and bubbly and has skeletons in it, so it's probably not good to get it on your skin. Or in your case, your fur, said Mayo. Looks too wide to jump, said Meerkat. Goo-goo, said Baby Goo-goo. Yes, very funny. We know it's goo, said Scruffy. Goo-goo, shouted Baby Goo-goo, pointing off to one side. Hang on, said Meerkat. Look at this. He walked towards where Goo-goo was pointing, and in the earth, hidden behind a small rock, was a lever. He pulled it, and a handy chromatic drawbridge with handrails extended from the front of the base, proving that the moat of liquid death wasn't as formidable as it first appeared. "Makes sense, really," Squeak observed. "If it didn't have a drawbridge, Scorp-ION Guy wouldn't be able to get back to his base without melting in the liquid death of his own moat." "He could have made some sort of remote control for it," said Scruffy. "Putting the lever right by the moat for anyone to use seems a bit stupid." "But what if he lost the remote, or the batteries were flat, or he was coming back late from a night out?" Squeak countered. "Fair point," said Scruffy. Next was the laser field, a criss-crossing field of lasers designed to burn anyone to a crisp who crossed one. Until Squeak dodged through them and turned them off from the other side, so that one was pretty easy too. Then came the mega turrets, huge auto turrets firing around 300 anti-personnel missiles a minute with pinpoint accuracy. But Meerkat just blasted them with his laser rifle, so they were no problem either. And so another deadly imposing obstacle was passed. With the turrets a smoking ruin, the Meerkats and Mayo approached the last of the obstacles, the electrified door equipped with scorpion pincers. So I suppose it was 2 obstacles really, making it 5 in total, not 4, as I previously stated, unless you count the doors as the scorpion and the scorpion arms as one thing, in which case there are 4, not 5, but if you count them separately, and really you have to, there are 5. Anyway, before the Meerkats and Mayo got to that 1 or 2 deadly obstacles, a pit trap opened up in the floor and they all fell in. So actually there were 5, 6 deadly obstacles, not 4 or 5 clear. The interdimensional crime-fighting Meerkats of almost certain peril and Mayo landed in an undignified heap, apart from Squeak, who landed on her feet like a true dinger, and Gugu, who, thinking it was an exciting fairground ride, cheered all the way down and landed on Scruffy. They were in the middle of an even lower chamber of the subterranean tunnels that extended deep below Central Park. "So, you couldn't quit messing with my plans," came a deep voice from the other side of the chamber. The Meerkats quickly arranged themselves into fighting positions, putting Mayo and Gugu at the back. Meerkat pointed his laser rifle at the tall figure who stood opposite. Scorp-ION Guy glared at them from inside his new, even more powerful mecha suit. "You know I don't like hurting animals, but for you guys, I can see I'm going to have to make an exception. Say hello to my new, improved Project Pincer Scorpion suit." "Hello," said Scruffy. "Don't actually say hello," said Meerkat. "Sorry," said Scruffy. "It's 3 times as powerful as the last suit I built, and my plans are too important to fail. At the Statue of Liberty I went easy on you, but now face the full wrath of Scorp-ION Guy." That was the only warning they got, but it was quite a warning, so they couldn't complain too much. Scorp-ION Guy leapt forward, huge powerful photon lamps blasting into action. "Scorpion lights, engage!" A flash of bright light illuminated the cavern for a moment. Mayo let out a scream, shielding her eyes. "My new improved Scorp lights will dazzle you so badly you won't see for a week," Scorp-ION Guy laughed. "Actually, Meerkats have these dark patches around their eyes," said Meerkat, helping Mayo keep her balance. "Yeah, they're kind of like natural sunglasses," said Squeak. "We're pretty resistant to bright flashes of light." "In that case, let us see you deal with this, my Mega Stinger." Scorp-ION Guy darted to one side, firing a blast of laser fire to cover his movements, then let his powerful Mecha Stinger lurch forward. The tail coiled around Scruffy's leg and stung him on the bun. "Youchies!" Scruffy yelled. "The venom from my Mega Stinger will leave you stunned for 2 weeks." "Well, it did sting quite a lot," said Scruffy, rubbing his behind. "But actually, Meerkats are mainly resistant to scorpion venom. In the wild, it helps us hunt scorpions who would otherwise be very dangerous to us." "Oh," said Scorp-ION Guy. "Of course, I knew that. Which is why they were just warm-up attacks. You'll never win, even without my Scorp lights and Mega Stinger. The awesome power of my armoured suit is capable of resisting all your weaponry." Meerkat took a shot with his laser blaster, aiming for what looked like a weak point on the shoulder of Scorp-ION Guy's suit. The beam of light bounced harmlessly away. "You know, you might be right," said Meerkat, "but we do actually have something that might just do the job." "Please say what I think it is," said Squeak. Meerkat nodded. "Meerkats, Engage your Meerkatanas. At his words, each meerkat, apart from Gugu, who'd once again dozed off, engaged their Meerkatanas, mono-molecular-edged wrist blades that could cut through any known matter. "May I?" Squeak asked. "Go get him," said Meerkat. Squeak moved forwards, Meerkatana held high. Scorp-ION Guy scurried back, obviously worried about how quickly the Dinger had defeated him back at the Statue of Liberty. In a blur of motion, Squeak took a mighty swing at him. Scorp-ION Guy lifted his tail to block, but the katana cut right through his exoskeleton, sending the tail and stinger spinning through the air and landing behind a rock. "Ah!" Scorp-ION Guy shouted. "Those things are sharp, but now this little dance is over. My iron cannon is fully charged." At his words, plates and modules on his suit's core retracted, revealing the circling barrel of an iron cannon. "He's got an iron cannon!" shouted Scruffy, confirming the presence of the iron cannon for the third time. In case you'd missed it for the first two references, it's important for a joke I've been working on since chapter 1. Scorp-ION Guy laughed. "You seem shocked, despite the fact that I've been called Scorp-ION Guy from the very start of this book. You think this writer made the effort to hold shift down to type those letters every time for nothing? You think they're that sort of writer? That they'd risk carpal tunnel syndrome for this so-called joke?" "I guess that does make a terrible sort of sense," said Scruffy, watching with horror as the iron cannon neared full charge. Squeak looked to Meerkat. "What are we going to do? There's no way we can survive a blast from that thing." Mayo rubbed at her eyes, her vision only just returning. Scruffy handed her baby Gugu, who was snoring softly. "Against a weapon like that, there's only one thing we can do," he said. "An iron cannon is the third most powerful laser in existence. Fortunately for us, we have access to one even more powerful. The Death Laser 2.0 on Gugu's power suit," said Scruffy. "That's it!" Meerkat snapped his fingers. "Hey, Scorp-ION Guy, there's something you've forgotten." "Oh yeah, what's that?" "If you kill us, Gugu won't get to watch her afternoon TV programs." "What are you blabbering about? What's that got to do with anything? Just hold still and get ready to be vaporized." "There'll be no Binky Bunny, no alphabet friends," Meerkat went on. "Oh, just be quiet and get incinerated with some dignity, will you?" Scorp-ION Guy suggested. Scorp-ION Guy had no clue what Meerkat was going on about, but someone did. Even in her sleep, baby Gugu could sense when she wasn't going to get her screen time. She awoke and equipped the Babynator. Chapter 11. Scorp-ION Guy let out a shriek as Gugu's power suit materialised around her. As a master of robotics engineer, he could immediately see the genius of its design. He knew it was a superior suit to his. He panicked, blasting the iron cannon a little too soon. The Meerkats and Mayo sheltered behind the Babynator, whose energy force field automatically deployed and protected them from the blast. "Gugu," said Gugu. Scorp-ION Guy cursed. "Why do you all keep meddling with my plans? Don't you understand what's happening? We're running out of time." "Get him, Gugu," cried Squeak. "Gugu," said Gugu, but did nothing. "That's the guy who won't let you see your TV programmes," said Scruffy. "Catch him." Scorp-ION Guy was backing away, seeking a means to escape, his iron cannon recharging. "Come on, Gugu," said Meerkat. "You're the only one who can stop him." "What's the point in telling her that?" said Squeak. "She never does anything with this suit." "Then it looks like we have to," said Scruffy, clambering onto the side of the Babynator, screwdriver in hand. "I've got a plan." Working fast, he opened a panel and, reaching inside, pulled away some wiring. A moment later, a huge cannon popped up from the Babynator's shoulder, the Death Laser 2.0. "Let's fight fire with fire. We defeat the iron cannon with a more powerful laser, and I can control it manually from here," said Scruffy, perched on Gugu's shoulder. "Why didn't you mention that sooner?" Meerkat growled. "I've been working on fixing the toaster this week," said Scruffy. "I totally forgot." The Death Laser 2.0 had never before been fired. Its power readings were off the chart, and its damage potential was too high to even calculate, let alone test. It had been created by Gugu, the normally peaceful Meerkat, in a move outside her usual character, unexpectedly creating the most powerful weapon the world had ever known. A laser with double the power it needed to kill anything. Or put another way, a laser with the power to kill things twice. Scruffy fired it, the beam a tight line of pink plasma. It struck Scorp-ION Guy in the chest, sundering his power suit and blasting him across the cavern. He slid to a halt, not moving. "Goo-goo!" clapped Goo-goo excitedly. All the meerkats looked at her. It was unlike her to get excited about people being hurt. Then Scorp-ION Guy stood up. "Huh?" said Scruffy. "It was a direct hit." Scorp-ION Guy staggered, his movements confused. "I feel so strong," he said. "So powerful, so intelligent, so much more than before." "What?" asked Mayo. "How can that be?" "Of course, it makes perfect sense," said Meerkat. "It does?" asked Squeak. "Yes. Scruffy's tests discovered that the Death Laser 2.0 was twice as strong as a normal Death Laser, right? Well, it is. It's so strong it killed him, then brought him back to life as an even more powerful version." "So you mean it's not a Death Laser, it's a Life Laser?" Scruffy asked. "Goo-goo!" chimed baby Goo-goo. "No wonder she was so proud of it," said Squeak. "If you've quite finished," said Scorp-ION Guy. "You were nearly a match for me, however, you failed to take into account." But as he was talking, Goo-goo sprung to life. Her suit dodged forward, arming her milk bottle, which she liberally blasted into Scorp-ION Guy's face. Scorp-ION Guy staggered. "No!" he shouted. "No!" "What's wrong with him?" asked Mayo. Scorp-ION Guy fell to the floor. "I'm lactose intolerant," he murmured. "Of course," said Mayo. "The accident on the dairy farm. It was in his file." Scorp-ION Guy collapsed to his side. "Not like this," he moaned, then slumped to the ground, finally defeated, not with weapons of destruction, but by a warm spray of milkies right in the face. Chapter 12. Mayo and the meerkats waited on the roof of groovy Channel 27 news studio, watching the president's helicopter churning closer. Beside them stood a large containment cube. It was standard superhero equipment for the constraint and transportation of dangerous supervillains. "You sure about this?" asked Scruffy. "This is probably the biggest enemy we've made so far." Meerkat nodded, tapping the containment cube beside him. "With the interdimensional crime-fighting meerkats of almost certain peril, we have a job to do." Scruffy nodded and stepped back to join the others. It was best to let the boss handle these situations. The helicopter settled on the roof and the Prez and her team stepped out, ducking as they walked under the blades. She shook Meerkat's hand. The helicopter thrummed down to silence and the Prez looked towards the containment cube with a smile. "Great work, Meerkats. We knew we could count on you." The Prez turned to face her team. "Open the front. I want to see this villain face to face." A tech stepped forward and began entering a code on the prison cube's display. A moment later, the door slowly swung open. The president's expression turned from one of triumph to confusion and then to anger. "It's empty!" she screamed. "What is the meaning of this?" "The meaning of this is simple," said Meerkat. "This mission stank from the start. It took me a while to work it out, but after we captured Scorp-ION Guy, Scruffy looked through his systems. Now I understand what all this has been about." "What are you talking about?" the Prez demanded. "I'm talking about Project Jabberwocky and Project Vorpal," said Meerkat, "as you know well." The president's face hardened. "That's classified information." "Not for long," said Meerkat. "Mayo is about to broadcast the data worldwide. What a scoop for Channel 27, huh?" "You're bluffing. You have no idea what you're doing," said the Prez. "But I do," countered Meerkat. "You see, Ian Scorp, a.k.a. Scorp-ION Guy, came up with a project while he was working for Digidyne. Project Vorpal. He'd found a way, using the interdimensional rifts that opened up around our planet, to warp space and time through science and time compression. And being a good man, he strove to make the world a better place by creating a machine he called Vorpal, a machine that made more time. He intended to use it to create another day of the week so everyone could have a long weekend, an extra day off, every week. But you found out about it, didn't you? And you shut his lab down. You took Vorpal and used the tech to create its opposite, Jabberwocky, a machine that stole time. And you used it to steal the weekend and replace those days with 2 new weekdays, meaning no one ever got a break, ever. No wonder we've all been so tired. I wouldn't have noticed if not for my time sense, a power I developed after baby Gugu transported me back in time 365,984 times to watch the same episode of Binky Bunny. Now we're working with Scorp-ION Guy and we're going to put things right. I'm pretty sure the voters won't be happy that you stole their weekends from them. You can't, said the press. People won't understand. I did this to make the world greater. Businesses are much more productive. With the extra money, we could change the world for the better. What's a few weekends compared to that? Well, let's see if the people of the world agree, said Meerkat. Mayo, run the film. Wait, the press cried. Okay, I'll call it off. She turned and nodded to one of her aides, who barked some orders into a communicator. I can't believe you worked it all out, said the press. The clues were right there, right from the start, said Meerkat, like in the bank, in the security footage. Scorp-ION Guy referred to himself as a hero, not a villain. Then, when we fought him at the Statue of Liberty, despite his suit's high accuracy and power rating, he never hit us and was shooting only to stun. And he warned us several times about running out of time, a seemingly normal expression if not for the circumstances. The truth is that Scorp-ION Guy was never a supervillain. He's a superhero, one who just happens to be opposed to you. I'm warning you, Meerkats. Do this and you will make me your mortal enemy, said the press. Too late, said Meerkat. The process has already begun. The world didn't stop. If anything, it span faster for a second or two, then slowed down, then sped up as time began to unravel and go back to normal. Then sort of went quite slowly, but not really slowly. Then it did stop. Then it went back a bit, up and to the left, then down, and then began to spin back at a normal speed. And then time went back to normal. And because of science, only the Meerkats and Mayo and the Prez and Scorp-ION Guy knew anything had ever been wrong. Back on the roof of Groovy Channel 27 News, the Prez was furious. You might have ruined my plans, but there's one thing you've forgotten. Your stupid, invisible boat is all the way over there, and I've got 3 attack helicopters ready to take you down. Well, there's something you've forgotten too, said Meerkat. Seeing as time has unwound itself, it's now a Tuesday. What has that got to do with anything? The Prez asked. Just so happens to be the only day the jet Gugu built can fly, said Meerkat. We'll be long gone before your helicopters can catch us. Don't try this again, or next time we'll take you down for good. The Prez initiated a comlink. Helicopters attack! 3 battle-class copters converged onto the rooftop of Groovy Channel 27 News. But there were no targets there for them to attack, just a billowing jet stream and a blurred shape on the horizon. Hey, said one of the helicopter pilots to the other. Did that jet have wings made out of marbles? Chapter 13. The interdimensional crime-fighting meerkats of almost certain peril, minus Mayo, who'd stayed in New York, were all asleep in the bunk room. Squeak stretched and rolled over. It was great to finally have a Sunday morning lie-in again. Now that the Prez's evil plan had been thwarted, the world could go back to relaxing at the weekends. Families could spend time together and enjoy days out. Sports teams could play their matches. Superheroes could have an extra 20 minutes in bed. Everyone was happy again. Well, apart from people who just work weekends, of course. They'd been having a great time of it, and now they had to go back to work. But everyone else was happy. Apart from some business owners who'd seen a huge reduction in their profits now that things were back to normal, they weren't happy. And neither was the Prez. She'd called 3 times already about threatening the meerkats with certain doom. But apart from those people, everyone else was happy. And so was Squeak. She rolled over and snuggled into her blankets. Then the fire alarm went off. The meerkats scrambled from the bunks and raced to the source of the alarm. When they got there, a terrifying sight awaited them. Scorp-ION Guy stood in the centre of their base, a look of rage and anger on his face. He hurled a flaming piece of tech at the wall. Curses! He shouted, shaking his fist. Meerkat turned off the alarm and Scruffy fetched the fire extinguisher. He put out what was left of the flaming toaster. What are you doing here? Asked Squeak. I was trying to make some toast, said Scorp-ION Guy. I can see that, said Squeak. I mean, what are you doing in our base? It's okay, Squeak, said Meerkat. I invited him. I thought Scorp-ION Guy would make a great addition to our team. I think this is going to create all sorts of problems, said Scruffy. I don't think so, said Meerkat. I think we can all work together and be an even better team than before. I don't mean that. I mean the team name. We're the Interdimensional Meerkats, remember? Yes, said Squeak. He's not a meerkat, or interdimensional for that matter. Plus, I've painted all the signs up around the base, said Scruffy. It'll take me ages to change them now. True, said Meerkat, but I've thought of that. For now, we've agreed that as the Prez is hunting him, we'll keep his name off the official team sheet. He can lay low with us. If it becomes a permanent thing, we can add his name later. Squeak nodded. Like, put it in brackets at the end, in really small writing. That makes me look like a sidekick, said Scorp-ION Guy. Yeah, you'd make a great sidekick, said Squeak. We could call you Snippy. Or Sir Snips-a-Lot, said Scruffy. Or Stingo, said Squeak. Or Mr. Snips, said Scruffy. I don't really like any of those names, said Scorp-ION Guy. But those are cool names, said Scruffy. How about you just call him Ian, said Meerkat. That is his real name after all. Sure, we can do that, said Squeak, offering a hand. Glad to have you on the team, Ian. Ian shook it. Thanks. Any questions? Scruffy asked. Only one. Why did you set your toaster on fire? Truth is, we don't know. Want to help me fix it? Scruffy asked. Sure, said Ian. I suppose if I can construct an elite battle suit, I should be able to fix a toaster. Don't speak too soon, said Scruffy. I've created a cloaking device, a catapult, a mechanical caterpillar, a trans-dimensional rift demagnifier, and rather a good recipe for a butternut squash tagine. All in the last month, but I still can't fix this toaster. Have you tried turning it off and on again? Asked Ian. That only works for computers, said Scruffy. How about whacking it? You're thinking of photocopiers. Anyway, it's a smouldering pile of metal lying in a heap on the floor. At this point, whacking it doesn't strike me as something that will work. Buy a new one? Ian asked. Come on, Squeak, said Meerkat. Let's check on Master Monkey and Goo Goo. Yeah, said Squeak. This conversation is getting way too technical for me anyway. Goo Goo and Master Monkey were in the garage, working on Goo Goo's new design for a jet. It was an impressive project. No one had ever built a jet out of toy cars and peanut butter before. But Goo Goo was attempting it. She'd got 2 of the engines working, but the third was proving troublesome. Not because Goo Goo wasn't capable of finishing it, but because she kept eating too much of the peanut butter, and the cars wouldn't stick together right. Ooh, ooh, beamed Goo Goo as Meerkat and Squeak entered. She couldn't say the G sound because her mouth was mostly gummed up with peanut butter. How is the new jet coming? Asked Meerkat. Good, said Master Monkey. I think this one will fly on every day of the week. Plus, it's the fastest jet ever built. There's only one drawback. Which is? Asked Squeak. It will only fly to the nearest toy shop. Oh, said Meerkat. Well, we can work with that, I suppose. Yes, we must adapt and overcome these problems, said Master Monkey. I am glad you are all back safe and that Scorp-ION Guy is now one of our team. Yes, it was a crazy adventure, Squeak agreed. Master Monkey nodded. The Prez was a baddie and Scorp-ION Guy was a goodie. Who would have thought it? This mission has taught us many valuable lessons. For one, we must be careful who we trust. Why is that, Master? Asked Meerkat. Because those we truly trust can become untrustworthy, said Master Monkey. And we must be careful who we don't trust too, because those we don't trust can become trustworthy. Therefore, we must remember that the trustworthy are untrustworthy and the untrustworthy are trustworthy. Doesn't that mean we have to be careful trusting ourselves? Squeak asked. Yes, said Master Monkey. We can't afford to trust ourselves in case we become untrustworthy. And only through being untrustworthy can we learn to truly trust ourselves. Wow, so wise, said Meerkat. Ooh, ooh, said Goo Goo, sticking another spoonful of peanut butter into her mouth. Squeak alone looked puzzled. So, just so I know, are we currently trusting or not trusting ourselves? Kind of lost the thread of what you were saying around the time you began talking. Look inside yourself. Trust your feelings. Only then will you know, said Master Monkey. When you say I should trust my feelings, do you mean I should trust them or not trust them? Squeak asked. Aha! Now you understand, said Master Monkey, clapping her on the back. I really don't, said Squeak. And in not knowing you understand, then you understand, said Meerkat. Don't you start, said Squeak. Meerkat opened his mouth to reply, but as he did, the base mere catastrophe alarm went off. The meerkats raced to the command room. On the console was the face of a silver-haired woman. Meerkat answered the communication. Your Majesty, how can we be of service? Who's that? Squeak whispered. That's the Queen of Norway, said Scruffy. Don't you remember? We saved her from that army of mutated woodlice last summer. Squeak shook her head. Once you've defeated one army of mutated insects, they all sort of blur into one. Woodlice are not insects, you cretinous quadruped, boomed a voice from beside her. All right, no need for that sort of language, said Squeak. We're on the same team now. Oh yeah, sorry about that, said Scorp-ION Guy. But seriously, woodlice are crustaceans, not insects. You know how I get with mistakes like that. Will you lot be quiet, please, said Meerkat, giving them a stern look. Your Majesty, what is the problem? The interdimensional meerkats of almost certain peril. Norway needs your help. A huge being made of pure energy is about to destroy Oslo. Our weapons are useless against it. Our best scientists and generals have no idea how to defeat it. We need your help. Well, Your Majesty, we'll be there in 2 shakes of a meerkat's tail, said Meerkat. How long is that, Scruffy? Well, we could be there in 6 hours if we use the Meerkatamaran. We can be there in 6 hours, Your Majesty, said Meerkat. That's great, said the Queen of Norway. Our scientists say that the blob of pure energy is going to destroy Oslo in 7 hours. That's perfect, said Scruffy. We've got time for a sandwich or something before we head off. Please hurry. We face a threat so dangerous and powerful that nothing can stand in its way. An evil scientific genius has created this being to be immune to our most powerful weapons. It is a threat that can destroy not only the proud and noble country of Norway, but also a bit of Denmark too. Hang on, got another call on the line, said the Queen. Then the screen went blank. A moment later it came back on. Actually, forget all that, we've sorted it. Sorted it? Yes, said the Queen. Turns out the blob of energy had a weakness. We defeated it. I thought you said you'd used all your most powerful weapons against it, said Meerkat. We did. It turned out the evil scientists made it immune to all our most powerful weapons, so we used our second most powerful ones against it, and that did the trick. Oh, okay, said Meerkat, so you don't need us. No, sorry about that. Have a nice weekend, said the Queen, and hung up. Well, I for one am relieved, said Squeak. Why? Were you scared we wouldn't be able to defeat a being of pure energy? Asked Scruffy. No, it wasn't that, said Squeak. I just hate books that end on a cliffhanger. Yeah, I hate that too, said Scruffy. Squeak nodded. Like they'll have an adventure, then in a shameless attempt to try to get interest for a sequel, they'll make up some silly emergency to set up the next story. Yeah, said Scruffy. Then they'll just end the book. It is really annoying. I'm really glad that this book isn't going to do that, said Scruffy. Me too, said Squeak. I'd hate it if it did. Then the phone rang. Meerkat answered it. He listened carefully, his face serious. He hung up. What is it, boss? Is something up? Squeak asked. Nah, said Meerkat. Wrong number. Someone wanting that insurance company again. Really? That keeps happening. It's so annoying, said Squeak. It really is, said Scruffy. Goo Goo, said Baby Goo Goo. But if there's not going to be an emergency, how is the book going to end? Asked Scorp-ION Guy. I don't know. We can't go on adventures all the time, said Meerkat. Perhaps we just have to do something normal. This place really needs a good hoover, said Scruffy. But that's not very exciting, said Scorp-ION Guy. You can't just end it like that. It has to have some sort of conclusion, like something exciting or a joke. You can't just finish a book with the heroes hoovering. With this writer, I wouldn't be so sure, said Scruffy. Yeah, wouldn't put it past him to even do that. They might just end it mid-sentence, said Squeak. That's ridiculous, said Scorp-ION Guy. No one just finishes a book.